Jeremy Botter joins Fight Game Podcast Extra. Jeremy, since we've talked last, I didn't expect the next time you would be on one of the shows that I do to be about a video game, AEW's Fight Forever. But here we are. I would have thought it would have been something, John Jones related or something like that. But welcome back, and thanks for doing this. And I'm really excited to talk about this video game, which seems to have taken a lot of social media by storm. It's very, very polarizing right out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, I am kind of surprised that we're talking about a video game, but I don't consider myself, it's been a long time since I considered myself an MMA fan. And since I've stopped covering it for several years now, I kind of only really watch the big pay-per-view. So I definitely would not be the person you want to talk to about that. But
yeah, but who's the bigger expert on John Jones than you?
I mean, oh God, I don't even know if I want to go there.
We don't have to go there.
It was an interesting time covering that man and covering Conor McGregor, who was probably the worst person I ever had to deal with when covering the sport. But yeah,
and the guy's still in the news for negative reasons.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, even if you get outside of that MMA bubble where you're watching, you're reading all the news that happens every day. You're still not surprised when you see John Jones has gotten in trouble or Conor McGregor has gotten in trouble. Some things never change.
So what is your history with wrestling video games specifically? Because this video game, I think in order for you to fully understand like the origin story of this video game, you got to go back like 25 years or even more.
Yeah, I mean, I could go back, I don't know if it's 35 years, but the first game that I ever really played that was pro wrestling centric was Pro Wrestling for the Nintendo Entertainment System, Starman and all those others. My cousin and I played it. And it seemed at the time.
Did you beat amazing. King Puma?
No, I don't think I ever did. And actually, I tried a couple of years ago and I still can't. That's the thing about me in video games. Like, I'm not great at them. I have fun. I have fun playing them, but like nowhere close to being an expert. But I started with that, and then I did not play another game really until I think it was I don't think it was No Mercy. It might have been WCW versus NWO, and a buddy of mine and he got it. And so we would have these nights basically on the weekends where we would all get together and we'd play, 4 players on those games, 2 players on those games. And I think the last time that we ever actually did that was the night that Owen Hart died in Kansas City. Yeah, we were playing and we stopped to watch the pay-per-view, and I'm sure if you watched it at the time, you remember it was kind of weird. You didn't really know what was going on. And then I read the news. I don't remember where I read it because Twitter obviously didn't exist. It was probably America Online, one of the chat rooms. And once I found out that that was actually real, we just didn't really feel like playing pro wrestling again. And we never went back and played No Mercy, WCW, NWO Revenge. But I really liked those games and they were great. But what really, really got me into playing wrestling video games was Fire Pro Wrestling, the series. I had a Sega Dreamcast and I got it modified to where I could, you kind of play old Fire Pro Wrestling games. And then I had a modified with a mod chip, a Super Nintendo with a mod chip that let me play Fire Pro Wrestling X. And that game was really the one that got me into it. And it's kind of set the standard for what I like in video games now, because it wasn't just it wasn't a fighting game. It was a game. If you haven't played the Fire Pro series, it's a game where the ultimate goal is to work a match. You start off with, strikes and light moves and move your way up, because if you start off a match and you try to go straight to your finisher, it's going to get reversed. And so to me, that was, building up matches, working them the right way, letting yourself get beat on to try to raise the rating of the match at the end. That's what really did it for me. And and I would say that, Fire Pro Wrestling World, which came out, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago for PlayStation and PC, is my all-time favorite wrestling game. But I was still really excited about Fight Forever because those old N64 games really, they've got a warm place in my heart, as they do for everybody who ever played them, just because it was easy for anybody to pick them up and play. You didn't have to put, and in Street Fighter, you have to know all these moves for the different people. You didn't have to do that. You could pick this up and, in a reasonable amount of time, 10, 15, 20 minutes, you could be having good matches with your friends. And that's what I really look forward to Fight Forever for.
Wrestling games have been hit or miss historically. You talk about pro wrestling, which was fantastic. WWF had a WrestleMania game that came out after, and it sucked. It was just about, having Bam Bam Bigelow do cartwheels and stuff. And so the depth wasn't there. There was actually a really good NWA Nintendo game that was out and had all of the Crockett characters. That was really fun. Graphics wise, it was a little aged. And I know that I think there's a second game that they had actually tried to bring out, but probably it was probably too old by then. People moved on to Super Nintendo and Genesis. But the arcade games, WrestleFest and Superstars, those were what WWF did the best as far as the wrestling games. Those coin-op games were really, really fun. And all of the folks like me were like, how come I can't get a home version of those games? Like, I would just play the heck out of it. Now, the technology on the home systems wasn't up to speed at that point. But even going into the Super Nintendo, like they had the Royal Rumble game, and you go up to the PlayStation. But these games for the N64, they peaked in the quality right as the time of the product is peaking in popularity. So there's a nice crossover for gamers and actually pro wrestling getting super duper hot that I think is part of everyone's memories. Like, because you could talk to someone today who's around our age and they may not watch pro wrestling anymore, but they will remember the Attitude Era and they will remember playing those video games at the same time.
Yeah, and I was thinking I should have mentioned WrestleFest. Growing up, we weren't exactly rich. I would go and stay weekends with my grandparents sometime and sucker my grandma and grandpa into taking me to the arcade. And that's really the only time I ever got to play WrestleFest. And so because I couldn't, my mom and dad were not going to let me drop 25 cents or 50 cents to play arcade games, because back then they believed that video games rotted your mind, which they might have been right, but still. Yeah. And so I never got to play it. And so WrestleFest kind of got this weird mythology in my head, like as this game, like it was the holy grail, because the graphics were, because it was an arcade machine, the graphics were so much better than what we could see at home. And I do remember that NWA game, and like it had that camera angle like Fire Pro does, where like the ring is kind of askew and you're looking at, I remember that game. I remember it not being very good. But WrestleFest, like you had these huge characters with awesome sprites and it looked great. And so because of that, it kind of, in my head, that was like the wrestling game growing up.
The Holy Grail.
Now I play it these days and I'm like, man, this is terrible. This is a bad game.
It's very simplistic, and which was kind of the idea back then for arcade games. Like it was the NBA Jam of wrestling games. Like if you go back and play NBA Jam, I have a little they have the machines out for pretty decent price these days. They're a little bit smaller, so I have an NBA Jam in my office, and it's the same game that I played in high school. But at the same time, it's a game that if my friends who don't play video games and will never play NBA 2K because of the difficulty and kind of understanding how to play it, they know how to play NBA Jam. So let's get a game of NBA Jam going. It's very like a casual gamer type of game. And I sort of see WrestleFest in the same way, but that's not necessarily only what Fight Forever is trying to do here. You've had the game for longer than I have. And so you probably have a little bit more on it than I do. I've only played, I started the career mode and I played through the Casino Battle Royale and I played through my first match. And with one exception, which is I could not figure out how to target the correct opponent in the Casino Battle Royale, which I now understand is a setting that you have to adjust to be able to manually do that. My Casino Battle Royale experience was a lot of fun. It was time consuming. It was like an hour of me just like hitting paradigm shift after paradigm shift after paradigm shift. But it did give me a little bit of the feeling of those N64 games when it came to the fun and the taunts and trying to hit your finisher and trying to do, the signatures. That stuff is very fun. But I can see people who like the WWE 2K game, because of all of the things that you can do, they may look at this game and go, it's kind of child's play. Like I'm into more stuff here with this 2K game. You've played both of them. What is your experience?
Yeah. So 2K, as you've been, I mean, it's complicated, right? So this is a game that, over 10 years, they've been using the basic version of the engine now. And they're, to be honest, I know a few years ago, they canceled a launch because the game was just terrible. It's true. But when they came back last year, I noticed immediate improvements. And then this year, I think, is one of the best wrestling games ever made. There, it still has its problems, obviously, but it's one of the best wrestling games ever made, not because of the gameplay itself, because that gameplay is enormously complicated. I mean, I've been playing it for months now, and I still don't really know how to do everything. I can do a lot of stuff, but like I'm constantly discovering new things to do and weird button combinations you can press to do things. And that, so, but for WWE 2K series, that it kind of occupies a different space than Fight Forever does.
Yes, very much.
I'd say, I would say like it is complicated in the way that like, the new modern Madden footballs or NBA 2K, which I love, compares to, NBA Jam or the old NBA Live series on Super Nintendo, which was one of my favorite games ever. I think it was 96, NBA Live 96. It compares favorably to those because as games and systems have become more complicated and powerful, it has become more complicated and powerful alongside it. WWE, I think that WWE, it's a fantastic, I don't know that I would call it a simulation game because a simulation game to me is like a Football Manager or, one of the text-based simulator games.
Well, I play Out of the Park Baseball, which is,
I do too. And
which is absolutely fantastic. But at the same time, it's so heartbreaking. I will stop playing that game for months because I get knocked out of the playoffs in the first round.
Yeah. It's enormously, like every year brings a new version of that game or Football Manager. And I spend, 20 or 30 hours setting up my team and getting ready to go. And then I finish the season, with a losing record. And it's to me, that's a simulator game. I would not call WWE 2K simulator, but I will say it is a complex game that takes a while. The creation tools I spend more time creating custom entrances because you can do creating an entrance. Not only do you choose a movement or the music or the pyro, you can do it all at different times. Like you can set up, a person to walk out with Andre the Giant until he leaves the stage. And then he becomes, the Fiend, whatever. Like you can really, really get very specific with those creation tools. You cannot do that in Fight Forever. And we can talk about that in a second, but to play Fight Forever, what I did is because to me, this game has been sold on arcade, easy to pick up and play. So when I started it up, I did not look at the tutorial. I didn't read any guides or anything. What I did was go, okay, let's see how much I remember of No Mercy in those games and how much it applies here. And honestly, dude, it was pretty remarkable how quickly I was picking it up and playing it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a real feather in their cap. Now, you know how I'm seeing, and I wonder if this was the intention. People our age who played all those games, the immediate thing that they did was go, hey, I have a kid and I want to play with my kid. And a few people in the discourse, that is exactly how they started playing, which is they created the game, or they started up the game and immediately went to the tag team mode so they could play with their kid together. So it's like this great experience of adult kind of living as a kid again through this video game, playing alongside their kid, which I get because my main reason for playing NBA 2K is so that I can play with my son and his buddies. And what he doesn't know, though, see, the trick here, he doesn't understand that, no one talks on the phone these days. So it's kind of like my opportunity to get him on the phone. So we're on the headsets and just chit chatting about stuff. He doesn't know that part of my strategy there, but that's actually a great experience, I think, for this game. And I wonder if that was kind of the part of the idea, the leaning into it, because it's not necessarily AEW, the product. You can't really target it towards kids because it is absolutely more violent and bloody than WWE. And I know they have the blood in the game and you can turn it off and all that stuff. But I do wonder if that was part of their strategy. Do you know if they kind of looked at it that way?
It sure seems like it. It's interesting. So my godson, we got him into AEW and took him to, he came, they live in Alaska, and they came down and we took him to go to the AEW Dynamite event in Houston last year. And, we took him, went to the hotel, met up with Adam Cole, who I've been fortunate enough to know for a long time, one of the nicest guys in wrestling, because my godson, that's his favorite wrestler is Adam Cole. And, he met the guys, had a great time at the event, started watching AEW. And then within a few weeks, his mom kind of realized that Jon Moxley bleeds every single week. And that kind of became like, she asked, she's like, is he going to do this all the time? I'm like, yeah, probably so. That's kind of his thing. And so she kind of had to monitor, DVR the show and let him watch it later after she's made sure that Jon Moxley's not going to bleed everywhere, or that, Wardlow's going to get whipped or anything like that, which was, pretty traumatic, but he saw it. So I think that I feel like the video game is, blood is on by default, but you can turn it off. And there are, different accessibility tools for parents on the game that make it an okay, a game for kids to play. I still think that they should probably have a way to limit the weapons matches and, the death matches and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because that gets pretty, I played earlier and I got hit with the head by a football helmet by MJF. And I was like, what is happening? And so they really leaned, there's sometimes where I watch Dynamite and I'm like, guys, we don't need a barbed wire baseball bat. We don't need thumbtacks in the shoes all the time. But they do it anyway, and they've kind of leaned into that in the video game. Thankfully, you can turn off the blood to make it better for kids to play, but I do believe it is easy. I think that anybody could pick it up and within 10 or 15 minutes, at least be having fun. They may not know how to do everything, but it's really, really easy to figure out. The controls are simplistic, whereas, WWE, you've got, 100 different characters and some of them have different moves, and it's a whole lot harder. It's not accessible from for a fan who just wants to maybe play for 5 or 10 minutes, but I think Fight Forever is. And the gameplay on Fight Forever, man, I think for all the tools that are lacking in the Creative Suite, the gameplay itself, the actual wrestling is really fun. Albeit I do believe it is too short. You get rewarded for having the shorter the match is, the more reward you get, the higher.
Yeah, there's a quality score to your match. Now, how does the quality score even play into your character? I've only had one match outside of the Casino Battle Royal, and I beat Dustin Rhodes in 2.5 minutes. I hit 2 signatures and a finish, and I got a score for winning quickly, and I think I got like a B for moves, but I got a C for quality. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's a little bit weird because when I first started, I started Road to Elite. I was trying to play have good matches, have good long matches, 10, 15 minutes. And I would get like a F for my rating. And I'm like, what is happening here? And then so I started just a couple times. I'd put it on easy and I squashed a few people in a row, 2 minutes or less. And it was an A+ for my rating. And I'm like, wait, this is, and it's way too quick.
This isn't the Dave Meltzer scale of
no
6 stars for Omega and Ospreay too.
Yeah, and it's weird that Kenny Omega was such a driving force behind this game, because I don't, I know they want the arcade feel, but pro wrestling fans don't want to go in there and have 2 matches where you're hitting your finisher within 45 seconds, which is possible. That's not what they want. That's not what I want. So that's one area that I think the gameplay is lacking. But just in terms of the tactical, grappling, striking, it's really well done. It's really a good base. They've got a really nice base to build on in the future.
Now, with video games these days, and especially sports video games, for me, the replayability is pretty huge. And a lot of the games, they kind of not trick you, but the way that they get you to continue playing is they give you different modes. In the show, MLB The Show, it's the DD mode. So you're just basically trying to gain as many possible cards as you can to build up your team for online play. And you have programs with, all these things you can do. And when you hit the end of the program, they even give you more just in case. And so there's a reason to keep playing. If you are if that is your personality, you got to complete everything. That is what they do. For NBA 2K, for instance, it's, getting your player up to 99 so that when you do play online, you're the best of your guy possible. And then but on the flip side, I also have PGA Tour, which is a 2K game, and I don't play it that often. I haven't played it too much because the reason to turn it back on just isn't there for me. So it's like, do I want to play 18 holes, which takes about 45 minutes, and I'm not that good yet, so I'm probably shoot 6 or 7 over par, and then I'm going to feel deflated for shooting 6 or 7 over par. So I'm just going to spend time doing one of these other 2 games. Now in Fight Forever, I do notice that they have like daily and weekly challenges, and you get money for that to buy future stuff. I know there's going to be lots of DLC content, which if you bought the Elite version, I think you just automatically get a lot of that stuff. So what about the replayability factor do you see with this game? Does it have enough to keep people turning this game on every day, or do you think it's a little light in that?
No, yeah, as it stands right now, no, there's not enough to keep people coming back in the long term. Right now it's a brand new game, and so people are still experimenting. I've done several Road to Elite. I did one with Kenny Omega and one with my custom character, just to see if I would find any different storylines and stuff, and they were exactly the same. But that's also because I've yet to win the initial casino battle royal match. And also the casino battle, when it does the card draw at the beginning, so you can determine your spot, I'm always number 2. Every single time.
I just assume that it's just like this blind eliminator tournament that Tony Khan is doing, where it's supposed to be like this random draw. Oh yeah, Adam Page and MJF are teaming, and so are Swerve and Keith Lee. Like, okay, random draw. You're giving us 2 all the time. Come on.
Yeah, it's 2 every time, and like I get excited. I'm like, man, this is like the Royal Rumble. Man, I'll get a random number 2 every time. And you mentioned PGA 2 or 2K. I don't know if you've played the new EA Sports PGA.
I have not, but I heard it's better.
It's way better, but I can compare it to Fight Forever, because the golf game itself, like the act of actually hitting the ball and playing the course, is fantastic. Light years beyond 2K. I purchased the new 2K PGA Tour 2K game, and I deleted it as soon as the EA Sports game came out, because I'm not going to play it anymore. The EA version is the physics are awesome. It looks like real golf. It's challenging, but outside of the gameplay itself, there's not a lot to do. They have a shop that updates some items every day and blah, blah. And there's challenges that you can do, weekly challenges, daily challenges, monthly challenges. But once you hit those, there's not really a lot to do. But I think that game is basically the foundation for what their golf games, EA Sports golf games, are going to be going into the future. And that's how I view Fight Forever. There's some different match types that are really fun. I mean, the exploding barbed wire death match is really fun. It's very tense. It only lasts about 3 minutes, because that's when the explosion goes off. Or actually, I think it's 90 seconds is when the explosion goes off. So it doesn't last long, but what you have there when you are playing the game is really fun. And so I think that, I don't know how intentional it is. I know a lot of people are upset that, the creative suite is very lacking. There's not many options.
That is very surprising, by the way, too, because the original idea of AEW was like just inclusive, every kind of wrestling you want on here, like and so to have 7 random created what do you call them, skins or whatever, that was kind of surprising. I'm surprised that they let the game release like that.
Yeah, it's not great. And I think their intention, and they have not communicated this very well. I think their intention is for this to operate like a games as a service kind of thing, where, the next 2 or 3 years they're continuously updating it. There is one, I haven't seen a lot of discussion about it, but there is a mode coming out for Stadium Stampede that is going to be up to 30 wrestlers online at one time, with the kind of like in Fortnite, where you're in a circle and it shrinks and everybody has to move in there. So that is going to be coming out. I don't know when. And I think that is where they're really going to make, they're going to make some money, because you're not going to be able to buy the ability to be better stats wise, but you'll be able to customize your wrestler. And a lot of people will go for that, as we've seen in other games. And I think that's their intention, but for everybody like me who just wants to, run like a universe type thing, where you're running your own promotion and changing your belts and all that stuff, like WWE 2K, you can even customize the side plates, the little circles that they put on the belt. You can do your own custom side plates and belts and t-shirts and everything. You can change the wrestlers' outfits. Like, you can change the colors. If you go in there and like Sheamus, you want to make him you want to put orange shorts on it, you can do that. And this, you cannot do that. The only thing that you can do in Fight Forever in terms of apparel is add a t-shirt for a city that you've been to. And exactly. I think that is the dumbest thing that I've ever seen in my entire life.
It was pretty lame. I was like, why do I want to put this t-shirt on my guy? It's a lame t-shirt.
Yeah, that's all you can do, and there are some more options when you're creating your own custom character, but like, people are going to want to be able, if Kenny Omega comes out with a new jacket, or they're going to want to be able to make that.
Yeah.
And that's what 2K3 has done. And so I think it's, I do believe, talking to some of the developers and stuff over the past month or so, I do believe that they have the intention of coming out with that stuff. But like, man, the game took 3 whatever years to develop anyway. They should have put it off until some of that stuff was ready to go. And I'm just hopeful that they'll retain some of the people who purchased it early like us, so that they can roll that stuff out later on. But like, some of those people like us who purchased it on day one might be gone by the end of week 1, because there's just so little to do.
Yeah. And that was my worry when they came out. And, I've even had the chance to talk to Kenny Omega about this game, and, he didn't want to give too many details, but I think he understands kind of the things that we're just talking about right now. Like, how do you keep people playing? The single player mode is so important, I think, in replayability. And if you don't have that, then people are just going to forget it. And if you know how the PS5 works, you have the little tiles of the games, and it shows the ones that you've opened up recently. And sometimes you even forget that you have games on your system because they're so far down the list that you haven't opened them in months. And then you're just like, oh yeah, I do have that game. So yeah. I think, hopefully, because the idea is to not release the new software copy every year like WWE 2K is going to do, and instead keep this version of the game and then update it and fine tune it. At least I hope to continue to do that. DLC, like you said, Stadium Stampede, other modes of things, other matches, other characters. Hopefully we'll get a nice, maybe monthly, because if you target it monthly from a marketing perspective, and you can be consistent with that month, that will be the way to get people to turn on the game at least once a month, is to see what's new that's out. And if you can do it every 2 weeks, even better. The show does it about every week. So there's a new program or a new thing or a new mode or new cards, and they're constantly reminding you that stuff is coming out. So I think that would be very helpful to get people to remember to keep turning the game in. But at the end of the day, I think, as far as I'm concerned, at least, what's going to keep me playing the game is if I feel like there are new things to conquer. And you're telling me that this career mode is sort of a little simplistic, and you've already beat it twice. Well, I'll beat it once. I'm probably not going to go back again unless there's something different. So do you think there's going to be anything else that they're going to be able to add to the game to make people feel like, oh, I have more to do, and thus I'm going to keep playing?
Yeah, I mean, I know that there are different branches and paths you can take in the Road to Elite mode. But, in order to see them, apparently you have to win that first Casino Battle Royal. If you lose it,
so maybe there is maybe there is a choose your own path here if you could actually win that match.
Yeah, then there is, because I've seen some people talk about you get involved in the storyline between the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle, even though neither one of them exist anymore. You get involved in that, but I just haven't gotten to that point. And I don't know how to. I mean, winning a Casino Battle Royal would help, but I don't know how many branches there are, and I think it's probably still minimal. But the problem is, like, if you're like me and you play the Road to Elite, let's say 3, 4, or 5 times, and the first couple of branches are the exact same every time.
Yeah,
you're not going to keep going, because who wants to? I don't want to experience the same storyline. If there was a way to know that you get different storylines, it would be interesting. And the problem with that is, like, once somebody stops playing because there's not enough content, the game could fall prey to, I've got to delete this to clear up space for X game on my hard, which is how I am. I mean, I've got 1 terabyte on my hard drive, and like, there are times where I have to delete stuff if I want to play something else. Yes. And the problem is that once you've deleted it, then that game, even the updates, no matter what they do, unless you're involved in some kind of community for the game, it's kind of pushed from your mind, because it's not going to auto update on your machine. You're not going to go, oh, wait, they've added something. Let me go check out, see what it is. And they're in real danger of doing that if they don't, update quickly. I don't know what the schedule is for updates, but I think it's absolutely imperative they do. And I mean, I'm actually shocked that they did not launch with some kind of card. I mean, the card type game or card type functionality is like in any sports game you play. Basically anything you play these days is going to have that, because it is a revenue generator for the company. So I'm kind of shocked that they didn't launch with at least some version of that where you can collect cards and, play your friends and build your decks. That kind of stuff keeps people coming back, and they just don't have that. So where is the replayability? I'm not where, as of right now, I'm not sure it exists.
All right, well, let's end this. I want you to give a score based off of your expectation of, now you've had the game for a little while, so if you can think back to before you actually got to play it versus what it is so far, because for me, I'm not that deep into it, but I would give it a solid B just for the fun of it. Now that may wane as I play it longer and, get much better at it. But I think it's a solid B, which I was a little worried that I wasn't even going to see it as that high when I started seeing, videos of the game and stuff. But I would say I was impressed at how easy it was to pick up and how reminiscent it was of games that I have great joy of from, 25 years ago. So, it kind of did take me back to my days of working at Blockbuster. And once we shut down the shop, we would go from midnight to 2 a.m. We're just playing 4 people. Like those days, like that, those days are fun memories. And so it kind of rekindled that for me. But yeah, so I would say it was based on my expectation. I think it's a solid B in the early stages of me playing it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned Blockbuster employees because I worked at Blockbuster also, and we played No Mercy in those games after work. I think to be a worker at Blockbuster in that time it's kind of what you had to do. Because I know so many people like that, and kind of still makes me sad that Blockbuster's gone. But
I know it is.
If I go back to my expectations, let's take my expectations back to when they announced it and told us what it was going to be. It was going to be reminiscent of No Mercy, easy to pick up and play. My expectations back then, if I gave it a rating comparing now to my original expectations, I would say probably a D, maybe an F.
Oh, wow.
But that's, but as time went on from the initial announcement to then they started to limit our expectations and tell us what we could expect. I mean, I would say my expectations, right before release compared to now, I would say a B. I'm disappointed that the creative suite is so thin. The entrances are another like that. I think I hate that more than anything in the game. They're like 6-7 seconds. You can control your pyro and camera angles, but like it's only 6 or 7 seconds. You don't really have time to do much. And entrances are such a huge part of wrestling presentation, such a huge part. And because that stuff is so limited, Cody Rhodes comes out to his song, but it's only 5 or 6 seconds. And, just as you get into like,
is it at least the whoa part?
No.
Oh,
it's literally just the guitar part at the beginning. Like that's all it is. And so you can, it's cool because you can do, control the different pyros. You can do smoke. You can do, fireworks coming down from the ceiling, but like you do it and then immediately it's over and the guy's in the ring. I think that is really unfortunate. I mean, even No Mercy had longer entrances, and that was 25 years ago. So that's my biggest disappointment. But if they, over time, as I believe they're going to do, if they upgrade that creative suite, extend some of those tools, make updates to everything, I think going on, this game has a chance to become an A or an A+ that is remembered 15, 20 years from now, fondly by wrestling fans. But if they don't do that, I'm not sure that anybody, I think a lot of people are going to feel burned and may never give it another shot again.
Well, by the way, you say you talked to some of the developers. Do you know if the plan at some point, whether it's 2 years down the line, or maybe they just go, whoops, this is not good enough. We're going to have to just scrap our original plan. Do you know if the idea is to do like a Fight Forever 2, or if the idea is to, we need to just kind of have a different idea for what another AEW game could be? Because I would be interested if because back in the day, they were just trying to make money off of these licenses. So you would see like these different ECW games and you're like, this is the same game over again. They just added like a different background and you could fight around the arena or whatever. But in this sense, they made a choice to be arcadey and to have the graphics the way that they are. There is an opportunity on the other side to go heavier simulation and to do more like WWE 2K. But if it took them so long to make this game, I can't imagine how long it would take them to make another game that is a little bit different.
Yeah, I believe And, folks at the studio and publisher aren't going to come right out and say, yeah, we're going to make a second game. But I believe the hope is that they are able to continuously update and upgrade this one and provide more stuff for fans and, early buyers over time. And then hope that the sales have been good enough over this long period of time after, not just day one, but over the next 2 years. How many people are going to go back when it goes on sale for $20-$30? How many people are going to buy it after they see, DLC come out? Their intention right now, from what I understand, is to service it for a couple of years and then hopefully get the chance to make a sequel. But right now the focus is solely on updating this one, getting this to where it more closely matches the vision of, the folks that created it.
Game industry changes very quickly. I'd be a little worried about pushing any ideas, 2 years out and then trying to decide from there. But, I'm sure they have a plan and, they have ideas and stuff. But yeah, I will keep playing it. I know in our Discord, a lot of people are enjoying it, and we're going to figure out how to get some private parties going and getting people on. And like you said, if that Stadium Stampede game, little feature comes out, I think that will be fun for people who do like to get online and have like these little private party things. So that could be something. One last question. I should have asked you this before. Have you tried the online ranked thing?
No, I have not. Generally speaking, I don't really play with strangers online just because strangers are usually idiots in my experience. But like if I would jump on and play you, I'd jump on and play my friends. But I've not tried the rank stuff yet.
I just wonder if do you get anything by being highly ranked? And, what do you achieve by being highly ranked? That's kind of, what I would wonder too. Cause at least in the show, like you, I don't like playing against strangers because often what happens is they'll quit if things aren't going well for them, which I just played 2 games of the show in a ranked mode and got to the second and third inning of 9-inning games and was winning like 1-0 and they quit. So you don't even get to finish the game and you don't get to add, create stats and add to your guys. And so you get a little bit of thing, but I wonder if because playing a 5-minute wrestling match, I would guess that there's going to be less quitting because it's a small chunk of time. But do you get anything from the rankings, which I think is necessary in games these days, or is it just about I get to see my win and loss record, which I think would be not so great?
Right. Yeah, and I don't know for sure, but I don't believe as it stands right now, you get anything. Now, as they expand, they might be giving, custom shirts or custom trunks or, stuff like that. But as of right now, I don't believe you get much. But yeah, like I'm with you. I mean, I'll play the show. I've played the show online, and every time I used to play, every single UFC game.
Yeah.
I've tried to play them against people, and then they quit right before the bell. And and what sucked about those is not only do they get their reputation, their player reputation dinged, but you do too, even though you didn't do anything wrong. And so after that, I just got frustrated. I'm like, I'd much rather play the AI, much rather play the computer.
Yeah.
So I'm not really entirely sure, but from what I've seen of the Stadium Stampede, it's going to be wild. It looks absolutely crazy. Like I've seen, a couple of clips of Chris Jericho throwing Darby Allin down the skip from the second floor up down the stairs. I think that's going to be a blast. And I don't understand why they haven't talked about it yet, but it is going to be great.
All right, man. I appreciate you coming on and talking, and we'll have to do this more often because I really enjoyed talking to you. And again, who would have known it was AEW Fight Forever? But thanks, Jeremy Botter. Hey, by the way, are you doing, what is your relationship to pro wrestling these days? I know you haven't been updating the Substack and such, but what are anything in the hopper for you is relating to pro wrestling or MMA?
No, not really. I'm kind of just in full fan mode. I've got a full-time job that is, sports gambling, but not at all related to pro wrestling or MMA. And so I kind of just am enjoying the time away and being a fan again. I watch AEW every week. I never watch Rampage. I've watched Collision, which I suspect will probably stop here soon because I can't really devote 3 nights of the week to wrestling without getting in trouble by my wife. So, I would say, man, I'm just a fan. Now, occasionally I still have some freelance feelers out there to do some freelance work for some different outlets, but it's got to be really interesting. And I'm kind of, for me to do it just because I spent so many years writing so many words and so much of my life was devoted
Yeah.
to combat sports. It's kind of fun to just sit back and watch it happen now. I'm not even as active on social media as I used to be. And it's much more enjoyable, much better for my brain. Yeah, I love, and I listen to your show with Dave is my favorite show on, the WrestlingObserver.com. And I really enjoy the stuff you guys do, you and Andrew. And I'm trying to think. No, that's about it. That's about all I watch. I used to listen to some regular stuff, but I used to listen to Wrestling Observer Live, but I got a little bit of time every week. And so I want to listen to the stuff that I really enjoy, and that's you guys. So.
Oh, thank you. Really appreciate it. And, Jeremy says he's not really on Twitter as much, but at Jeremy Botter, in case you do want to follow him. But Jeremy, thank you very much for doing this. When you hit me up and said, hey, have you played the new game yet? I was like, oh, here's a possible segment for a podcast waiting to happen. But
really fun. I'd appreciate it too.
Yeah, thanks to Jeremy Botter, and check him out at Jeremy Botter on Twitter.